Hola chicos, I'm coming at you from Forest Lake High School today. Yesterday, you learned about Martin Luther King Jr. You already knew who he was, but you learned a little bit more about his philosophy on nonviolence, resistencia pacífica, and how that motivated his actions during the Civil Rights Movement. Today, I want to look at another civil rights leader who was very controversial and very different from Martin Luther King. One of the more radical civil rights leaders of the time. It's the guy on the poster behind me here from the Black Student Union, Malcolm X. Now, one mistake people often make when they think about Malcolm X is they think about him as like the opposite of Martin Luther King Jr. That's not really true. Él no fue al opuesto de Martin Luther King Jr., solamente fue diferente. He was just different. Both of them are fighting for the same thing. They're both fighting for civil rights. They're both fighting for black liberation, la liberación negra. The big difference is their philosophies about how to carry out that fight. So here's an example of how they weren't exactly opposite, but they were different. You learned yesterday how Martin Luther King is all about love, el amor. He famously said at the end of the video, that quote I shared with you, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. His I have a dream speech. He dreams of black children or white children playing together, going to school together, loving one another. This is the goal of King. Malcolm X, él no está interesado tanto en el amor. He's not totally interested in love. He's much more interested in power, el poder. Específicamente, el poder negro, black power. And so Malcolm X is much more interested in giving black people a sense of power and pride that he feels has been lacking in black communities, deprived of black communities due to white racism over the centuries in the United States of America. Malcolm X quiere cultivar un sentido de poder en personas negras, no tanto el amor. So again, both positive things, but different focuses. Martin Luther King Jr. on love, Malcolm X on power. Another difference, where they're not exactly opposite. Martin Luther King, he's about integration, la integración. Él quiere una sociedad en que blancos y negros vivan juntos. Martin Luther King wants a society in which black people and white people live together. That's why they're doing the lunch counter sit-ins. That's why they're doing the, Rosa Parks is sitting in the front of the bus. They want to be able to occupy the same places as white people. Malcolm X no entiende esto tanto. Malcolm X doesn't really understand this desire to integrate with white people. He's not totally a segregationist, but he does have a profound mistrust of white people. Él no tiene confianza en personas blancas. And so whereas Martin Luther King is looking for white allies to push integration on the American society, Malcolm X doesn't understand why Martin Luther King is looking to the white community for allies. Because of Malcolm X's experience, white people cannot be trusted. And so Malcolm X isn't looking to the white community in carrying out his crusade. He's looking to people who understand him, other people of color who grew up with the same disadvantages and repression that he did. Por fin, el último ejemplo. We all know that Martin Luther King is a proponent of nonviolence. Does that mean that Malcolm X is for violence? No exactamente. Remember, they are not perfect opposites. But while Martin Luther King is for nonviolence at all costs, Malcolm X is for self-defense. Take a look at this quote. Be peaceful, be courteous, obey the law, respect everyone. But if someone puts his hand on you, send him to the cemetery. That is Malcolm X. Malcolm X was not someone who advocated for violence. No fue alguien que quería violencia como un método dominante de su filosofía, but he was someone who was willing to use violence if violence was used against him. And you all know that the reality of the Jim Crow South was that black people often did receive violent treatment, oftentimes ending in the end of their lives at the hands of white racists. And so where Martin Luther King might have preached a philosophy of turn the other cheek, Malcolm X preached a philosophy of punchback. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X only met once. Solamente se conocieron una vez. And they never had a debate. Malcolm X was assassinated in 1965 by his own people. Martin Luther King is assassinated in 1968 by a racist. And these two never have a chance to go toe-to-toe on a debate stage. And that's really unfortunate because I would have really loved to see these two intellectual giants, men who I both greatly respect and admire, duke it out philosophically on some microphones. However, thankfully, through the magic of YouTube, we do have a debate between these two men. Somebody has cut up some clips of speeches and talks given by Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and put them together in a kind of debate format. That's what I want you to watch for your homework assignment today. You're going to watch the debate. Have a pencil ready. Write down some quotes from each man. Escribe unas citas de los dos participantes. And what you're going to submit to Canvas, lo que van a entregar a Canvas, is a quote from both men that stuck out to you. You're going to explain what that quote, you're going to write that quote, you're going to explain what it means to you, and then you're going to write about how it connects to the overarching philosophy of both these men. And finally, in the last part, what I want you to do after you do that for both men, I want you to tell me which philosophy you more agree with and why. Which one more appeals to you as the more successful philosophy to carry out this civil rights movement, maybe in that time, but maybe in our time as well. That's what's so great about these two men, is their philosophies carry up into 2020 in the continued fight for racial equality in the United States. So both these men's philosophies are still very useful to all of us. That's why we're studying them. And if you want some extra homework, if you're a reader, find a copy of the autobiography of Malcolm X. It is one of the best nonfiction books I have ever read in my life. Malcolm X was writing it right up until the days before he was assassinated. And so it's crazy to hear from a man who knows he's on borrowed time, especially in those last chapters. But it is just a fascinating read, and it's a read that it's so ahead of its time, it feels like it could have been written yesterday when it talks about the racialized society that we live in and the discrimination and racism that comes from that. So the autobiography of Malcolm X, co-written by Alex Haley, I'm telling you guys, it should be required reading for every American. And if you like to read, or even if you don't, maybe this is the book that gets you into that. Find yourself a copy and give it a read. One more day of the Civil Rights Movement. Nos vemos mañana.